I woke up, startled by the sudden sound of thunder. Damn, that scared the shit out of me. I took off the blanket, and at that moment, I got a sudden, severe headache. I fell to the floor and rolled, strongly holding my head. And the memories of the day popped up in my head. The same sound of thunder like that day. The rain was beating hard against the windows, as if it was about to break them. I woke up in the middle of the night and walked to the kitchen. At that time, I heard a faint sound, which was really weird, like someone's mouth was suddenly gagged while screaming. But I couldn't hear properly because it was soon drowned out by the sound of rain. I drank up a glass of water, and all of a sudden I saw something standing at the front door of the next house, which was visible through the window in my living room. With a flash of lightning, I found a vague silhouette of a human who was getting rained on without an umbrella. Thinking if I saw things, I tried clearly to see what it was, but I couldn't because it was too dark. After a while, lightning flashed once again, and I saw a woman and a man dancing together. I dropped the glass on my big toe and groaned with pain. When another lightning stroke again, I saw a woman dancing with somebody. She was grinning from ear to ear. However, the man dancing with her was lifelessly swung around, just like a dummy by the woman. As it was kind of creepy, I checked the door to make sure it was locked. Then I turned my eyes to them again to clearly see what they were doing. At that moment, her eyes suddenly turned to me. I got startled and immediately hid myself. I was not sure whether she got aware of me or if she was just looking in this direction. When I looked back through the window after a couple of minutes, they were gone. Come on, this is not funny. Please. Muttering in a low voice, I looked around a bit nervously, then went back to my room. Next morning, it was noisy outside the house next door. There were several police officers, and I found the man next door was found dead. One of the police came to me and asked me if anything had happened to me last night. So I said, I saw a man and a woman were dancing in front of the house, and I hurt my big toe. The police showed me a picture of his dead body and asked me if he was the man I saw last night. In the picture, all of his joints were terribly broken and twisted, and the body was horribly bloated by rain. It was even hard to recognize, but it certainly looked like him. Then the police showed me another picture of a woman who really looked like the one I saw last night. She was the dead man's wife, who already died 3 years ago. As far as I know, she had a severe mental illness while she was alive. Bullshit. She already died 3 years ago. But how come? I was extremely confused. A few days later, the police came to my house again and said, last night, another man living across the way died, completely soaked by rain, just like the previous case. Did you see or notice anything strange last night? I was shocked, speechless. The police continued, take care of yourself on a rainy day, especially when it's with thunder and lightning. Nobody can ensure your safety. I gulped with fear. It was so loud the police might hear it. Since then, there have been a number of witnesses telling that they're seeing the dancing woman night after night. Even there was a rumor that never make eye contact with the dancing woman at night, because several more men went missing in the village after that day. The police conducted a large-scale investigation, but they got nowhere. And one day, on a rainy night, I heard someone knocking at my door. I walked up to the door and looked outside through the window. I saw a woman in a white dress standing in front of my door, completely soaked with rain. I felt my heart suddenly thumped in the chest, because she was dancing alone, holding a knife. I shouted, "Fuck off! I don't like dancing!" Frightened, I missed my footing while shrinking back from her and fell backward, and I was still seeing her silhouette dancing alone through the window. "I'll call the police!" I shouted again. Then the silhouette disappeared, and fortunately, nothing happened that night. And I moved out from that house, and 6 years have passed since then. I haven't heard any news about that village and the woman anymore. But even now, I completely lock all the doors and windows of my house when it rains and lightning strikes. Sometimes it feels like I can hear her laughing from the yard, or I see her shadow dancing frantically. Well, all this might be just hallucinations. But nevertheless, I didn't look out through the window to identify that. Until today, I still have no idea who she was. Just one thing I can't ever forget is her dancing. Looking back on it now, maybe that was not dancing, but stabbing the man frantically with a knife.
My name is Sophia, and this happened in March 12, 2019. I was hanging out with my friend Sean at a park one day, since it was his birthday. We were waiting for two of our friends, Drew and Covey, to get to the park. About 30 minutes later, they showed up, bringing some snacks. We were planning on having a picnic, and the park there was the perfect place to have one. We ate, drank a couple of bottles of soju, played some board games, and caught each other up with our lives. It was getting dark. Covey checked her phone, and it was around 6:39 p.m., so we decided to pack our stuff and leave. As soon as we were done, we started walking to go home. You see, our houses are right beside one another, and we've known each other since we were all kids. Putting that aside, we were now walking on a dimly lit road with a couple of houses here and there. I saw a woman dressed in white with black medium-length hair. The weird part is, I could tell she was low-key bruised, even in the distance, and had a hunched back. I told my friends about the strange woman. "Maybe she needs help?" Sean said, unsure. "Come on, it's getting late," Drew said. "Yeah, I agree with Drew. It's not safe around here," Covey laughed nervously. "But what if she really does need help?" I said back. I turned around to see the woman still there, hunched over like she was eating something. Sean and I agreed to approach the woman while the other two, let's just say they were holding each other's hands because they were scared. As we got close to the woman, we had this uneasy feeling, and we smelled something that was rotting. Sean tapped the woman and said, "Miss, are you okay?" Silence. The next thing I saw still scares me to this day. The woman turned around, and we saw a big bloody scar on her forehead down to her chin. And the worst part is, I saw a little girl's body lying on the ground with no intestines, blood gushing out of her stomach. The woman was eating her intestines. I screamed so loud, and Sean grabbed my wrist and started running towards my other friends, shouting, "Run! Run! Run!" They didn't quite get it at first, but as they saw the woman chasing us, Covey froze in shock. She couldn't move, and we had almost reached them, but she still didn't move a single step. That's when Drew grabbed her hands and started running as fast as they could, with us following and the crazy woman running to us maniacally. We got home eventually and told our parents about it. They didn't believe us at first, but a day later, Covey's parents told ours that she got this big scratch on her back. It was like something with claws or long nails scratched her. We ended up calling the police and also told them about the girl's body. They ended up finding the girl's body in a lake, but it was strange that the autopsy said that the girl just drowned. My grandma visited this week, present time, and told me a story about a woman named Maria Labo. She eats human flesh and stuff, so that's why I shared this story with all of you.
Hey, my name is Philip, and this happened when I was 12 years old. Me and my mother got to a bar that was next to a hospital to meet my uncle. My cousin was with him. My cousin was at the time 13 years, and his name was James. He was my best friend. Time passed and it got dark, and me and my cousin started playing around the bar. After a little bit of time, we saw a man in the middle of his 40s, dressed in an old dirty black suit. He was just standing there, looking at us. I got freaked out, and we ran back to our parents. Then me and my cousin implored our parents to let us do a sleepover at James' house. My uncle accepted, and after my uncle talked to my mother, she accepted too. We were so excited because we wanted to stay up late and tell horror stories while eating sweets. We got to James' house, but James' uncle had to go buy some food from McDonald's for us. It was 1 a.m., and we started telling horror stories. After the first horror story that my cousin told, I got freaked out, and we started playing games on his phone. After 10 minutes, we heard a loud noise that was coming from the kitchen. The window from the kitchen was destroyed. Someone broke that window with a stone. We got to the kitchen, and what I saw is still giving me nightmares. It was the man that was watching us near the hospital. He was in the kitchen with a large kitchen knife, just looking at us. Now I saw his face. He was dirty and had 2 scars on his face. He had his eyes wide open and he was smiling, but at the same time he was looking nervous. He looked insane. After 10 seconds, the man said something that gave me the chills. "Do you want to feel my knife?" At that moment, I was frozen in fear. Then James said, "No." Then the man got James and stabbed him in the stomach. He fell on the floor. Then the man asked me the question, "Do you want to feel my knife?" He approached me, and then because of the blood that was bleeding from James, and because of the fear, I vomited on the man. And after a couple of seconds, as he was cleaning his costume, he screamed at the top of his lungs. And then my uncle got in the house and stabbed the guy with the car keys. And then he punched the man very hard in his face, and he passed out. Then he saw James and started crying. I was crying and shaking. My uncle called the police, the ambulance, and my mom. My cousin survived, and my uncle and my mom increased the security in their houses. From that day, my mother didn't let me go to other sleepovers. Neither did my dad. According to police, the man had escaped from an insane asylum. He got in the asylum because he'd mutilated his wife and killed her. When the body was found, the woman had a long knife deep in her stomach, and the man was looking at her. The police were called because the neighbors heard the woman and the man screaming. Now I'm 23 years old, and I'm still thinking what would have happened if I hadn't vomited at that time, and if my uncle didn't enter the house in that moment.
This is a story from around a decade ago, but every time I look back, that memory haunts me. Anyways, let me start the story. This is from the summer of 2010. I was staying at my grandpa's for vacation. I had a neighbor, let's call her Sam. Sam and I have known each other since we were toddlers, so we were great friends. Sam had a huge lawn, and we'd usually hang out there. That day, both of us were playing tennis together. We got tired after a while and decided to drink Coca-Cola. So we started climbing up the hill, and soon we reached a small shop there. After drinking, we took our walk down. While walking down the hill, there was this small path in between 2 houses. Our parents had warned us not to go there, but at 12 years old, we didn't know any better. We went through the path, which was covered with leaves and a bunch of trees. It soon led to a road, which was connected to the highway on the right, but the road was parallel to the road which we took earlier to the shop. On the left, we saw the road go down, so we went down that side. But soon the inclination of the slope turned from around 25 to 30 degrees to 60 to 70 degrees. We literally started slipping. We soon reached the bottom. We looked ahead and saw just a barren path. No houses within at least 2 miles. To our left and right, there was this water which had an unbearable stench. So we walked a bit faster, and soon reached at something which looked as if it was abandoned. We went inside as we were curious, without thinking twice. We saw a ton of metal cans lying around. As we explored the factory, we reached its back end and saw a puddle of some liquid. The liquid looked like water, but it had a weird sky blue tone and some frogs were floating on it. We saw some stairs and climbed them. The whole building was covered in moss and rust, so we didn't touch anything to avoid getting any shots later. As we reached the floor above, we saw some t-shirts and pants lying around. Sam checked her watch and it was 6:15 p.m. and we had to head back soon. As I was about to go down the stairs, she pulled me back up and held her hand against my mouth. Sam pointed at the window. We looked over, and what I saw sent chills down my spine. A man, probably 40s, about 5'6", just silently stood there, staring at the sky. The sun was starting to set. Sam gasped and pointed at his hand. Although it took me a second, I noticed he had a katana in his right hand. Sam gasped a bit loudly, and now the man saw us standing at the window. He looked at us with his big bloody eyes. He gave a wide grin and just stared. The katana looked bludgeoned, and his shirt had some blood on it too. He then looked at the ground for a second and stared back, this time angrily. He started sprinting toward the stairs at an extremely fast speed. We didn't know what to do. Sam yelled, "Jump!" There was no other option, so we jumped out of the window and into the stench-filled water. As we looked behind, we saw this man now with his neck twisted at a weird angle. He started running behind us. Adrenaline pumped and we sprinted. Soon we reached the slope and started climbing. Sam, on the other hand, was a bit weak and he was almost catching up to her. I got scared and yelled for help, but no one came. Then I remembered what my teachers told me and started yelling, "Fire!" Everyone came out of their houses only to see two kids being chased by a lunatic with a bludgeoned sword. A guy who was on his bike came at full speed and rammed the lunatic, flinging him away. He got up and started sprinting back at us when another guy pulled out his gun and said, "You better get the hell out of here before I put 4 bullets in your head." The guy turned around and started running. Sam's parents and grandpa came there to pick us up and we both got yelled at. Even to this day, I'm thankful for what my teacher said. If I hadn't yelled fire, well, I wouldn't be here to tell you this story. As for that man, he was never found again.
Hi, I don't really want to disclose my name, so you can just call me White Wolf. That's what everyone else called me as a child, anyway. I live in a small country town in the south, with lots of woods and deer nearby. I love nature and taking care of animals, so I often visit the woods behind my house to put out corn for the deer and tuna fish for the many stray cats that hung around the neighborhood. I used to be afraid of being in the woods alone as a child, but as I grew older, I also grew out of that fear. I also often wear a white hoodie and a pair of black dress pants, which allows many of the neighbors in the area to identify me on sight. They are always nice and kind to me because I'm kind to their animals, and they don't really make a fuss if they catch me so-called trespassing on their property, because I often have good reason to do so. I'm also often accompanied by my large dog, which will be important for you to know later. One day, my neighbor came over to me, asking me what I was doing in a part of the woods I never went into before, and if I needed help taking care of a new animal. I was confused and explained to her that I actually wasn't in that neck of the woods, and that I was actually home in bed sick that day. My neighbor was confused, but she shrugged it off and told me to have a nice day. I forgot about that interaction until a week later, when I went out to walk with my favorite cat in the woods. It was late in the evening. Actually, it was probably night now that I think about it. I was wearing my usual white hoodie and black pants, and walking by my side was my favorite cat. We were having a great time playing together when suddenly she stopped playing and quickly turned her head to face a tall growth of vines and trees on the other side of the creek. I suspected that she had just seen a coyote or one of my deer, so I got her attention and we walked off to where I usually left food for the other cats. I put out the bowl of food deeper in the woods, and I laughed when my cat tried to nuzzle my hand as I set out the food. "Cut it out," I laughed. "You silly cat." After I put out the food, I turned around to walk back home, but then I saw what my cat had initially seen earlier. What caused her to freeze? There, standing in front of the vines and trees, was a man who looked exactly like me. He had a similar pale complexion, dark shoulder-length hair, and a white hoodie and dark pants. He had black boots on, like the pair I was wearing, and beside him stood a tall, dark Doberman dog. He was just like me in every way, except his white hoodie was ripped up and stained with fresh blood. I grabbed my cat like a football and ran. I ran up the hill where my house was, but the man was still behind me. I was going to cry when a miracle happened. My mom came home in her car, and she caught the man in her headlights. She blew her horn as loudly as she could, scaring the man back into the woods instantly. I thanked her and put away my cat in my shed that night. If I were thinking, I would have called the police as soon as I got back in the house, but I was too scared to think straight, and instead went right to sleep. Now I only go in the woods during the day, and I keep my phone on me, just in case my doppelganger is waiting to replace me again.
This happened just 4 days ago. My family and I were having lunch in the backyard. We have a big house because my grandparents, my parents, my aunts and uncles, and cousins live in one big house together. It was getting sunnier, and I didn't want my skin to become tanned. I was walking towards the backyard door as I wanted to grab a fitted sweater and a hat from my bedroom when suddenly my 8-year-old cousin grabbed my arm, asking, "Can I come with you? I want to grab my mom's phone from the living room." And I nodded. 5 minutes later, I had changed my clothes and was waiting for my cousin when I heard her voice from the backyard. Maybe she didn't want to wait for me, I thought. I was about to go back outside when I heard a voice behind me. "Dear, don't you think you'll get too hot and sweat in what you're wearing?" I turned my head and saw my mom. "No, I'm fine as long as I don't get tanned," I said. Then I noticed something. She had different clothes on. My mom had been wearing pants and a t-shirt earlier. Now she was wearing a simple dress. I asked her, "Oh, why did you change your clothes?" She didn't answer me, but she turned around and walked toward the stairs. I found it weird at that time, and I glanced out the window, revealing my whole family in the backyard. My heart dropped when I saw my mom outside. If my mom was out there, then who was this woman here with me? Was she a doppelganger? Thoughts were running wildly through my head until the other mom spoke. "Come with me," she said. "Let me show you how to dress up properly." A weird smile plastered on her face. That's when I knew that she was not my real mom. She had no dimples. My real mom had dimples when she smiles. I acted normal so she wouldn't get suspicious. To be honest, I got really scared on the inside. I knew how to escape from this woman, though. Some say if you curse at a bad spirit, they will go away. It's a Filipino belief. So I yelled at her, "Shut up, woman! Don't bother me! I don't need your fashion opinion!" Then I stormed back outside. My face was blank, and then suddenly I started crying because I was super scared. I didn't know how I had managed to act brave in front of a bad spirit. I ran to my mom and hugged her. All of my family was asking what was going on, and I told them everything that had happened. After that day, everything went back to normal, I guess. No weird things happened again. Maybe the cursing had actually worked? I don't know, but my advice for you guys is if you ever see something that bothers or scares you, just act brave or be brave. Or maybe curse at them. It might just work.
This story happened a while ago when I was about 9 years old. It was an early morning, around dawn, when I suddenly woke up to see a tall, strange figure standing over me. It must have been watching me while I was asleep. It had a blank, pale face, but it still looked like a real person, and it looked exactly like my mom. The figure was wearing a blue bathrobe, something like my mom used to wear during the winter. So I figured my mom was maybe sleepwalking for the first time and came into my room during her dream. I was so startled, so I said to my mom, "What are you doing in my bedroom?" "I'm going to bed. You just scared me." But she didn't reply. the figure just kept staring at me. So I gave my mom another confused look and just went back to bed, thinking that if she's sleepwalking, she'll eventually leave my bedroom and go back to bed. My eyes were closed for a second before I turned around again, because I felt like someone was still standing behind me, but the figure ended up being gone. Panicking, I looked around my room because I didn't hear my bedroom door open or close, meaning it wasn't my mom, and whoever it wasn't sleepwalking. The person didn't even exist. A few days later, I told my mom and asked her again about why she was in my bedroom at 6 a.m. when I obviously was sleeping, but she had no idea what I was talking about. She said she never came into my bedroom and that she had never sleepwalked in her entire life. So I told her about this strange figure that was watching me while I slept and dressed in her bathrobe, and then it disappeared after I acknowledged its presence. She didn't really think anything of it. She just laughed it off and blamed it on my eyes must be getting tired. My mom always insisted that our home wasn't haunted or built on top of a historical ground. She's really spiritual, like into tarot card readings and psychics and manifestations. So she must not have wanted to give into the evil side. But that experience never left me. And my mom has now told me that I used to sit on our staircase and have conversations with the little boy and girl as a child. I've heard many stories about people supposedly talking to their family members, but they're really communicating with a demon in disguise. And I fully believe that the same thing happened to me that night.
This happened 6 years ago. I was home when I heard my doorbell ring, and it was my friend who asked if I wanted to go outside to the parking lot and hang out. I said, sure, I'm not doing anything else at the moment. The parking lot was big and was next to a football field, a large office building, and had a church nearby. But anyway, here's what happened. His brothers came up to me and we decided to play a game of hide and seek. Well, the place was big and open, so we had to use the building and cars to hide around. When we were about to start, a random man came out of nowhere and asked if he could join us. My friend said yes, and then pulled me aside and whispered, I don't trust him, and I agreed with him. Then his brothers came by and asked what we were doing now, and I said we should just leave. But my friend didn't care and said, let's just play along, and when he goes to hide, we'll ditch him. I said, what? Are you nuts? And he said, trust me. But when we were about to go, he wasn't there, so we decided to go to the building because there was a party going on over there, and we could ask for help. We were about to enter the building, and the man came out of nowhere in his car with 3 children in the back of the car. The man started teasing us, and the last thing he said was, aren't you afraid of the dark? And laughed. I said, no, and then he said, give me 5. And as stupid as I was, I high-fived him. And then he started pulling me in his car through the window. My friend and his brothers tried to help pull me back, but the man was too strong. I started screaming that the man was a crazy maniac, and the girls in the back of the car laughed. But then he let me go and sped away. People came out of the building because they heard us screaming, and my father came up to check on us. I was so relieved, and me and my friend told him everything. My dad took me and my friend home and then called the police, but the man was never found.
This happened last year when I was 15 years old. I badly wanted a new iPhone since my brother had broken mine. But I was thankful that my brother broke mine because mine was the iPhone 6, and the latest model was the iPhone 11 Pro Max. But that was like $1,000. There was no way my parents would get me that one. So I had to get a job, of course. I got a job at Target, and I mostly had late hours for my shift. My coworker, John, was a nice person. He helped me around a lot. One night, my parents and siblings were out of town, so that meant I had to walk home. But it was late, so I asked John for a lift. I told him the directions to my house, but he did not listen to me. We drove for about an hour or so until we reached an abandoned restaurant that was open. I was begging John to leave this place, but he just pulled me and dragged me inside. There, I saw a woman that was tied to a chair and looked like she hadn't slept in years. John dragged me to a chair and tied me to it. Then I saw a creepy look in his eyes that I had never seen before. I couldn't believe that I had trusted him. He locked the door and went to another room. Good thing he didn't cover my face, so I spoke nervously to the woman. She told me that he was a part of a group that kidnapped women and harassed them and killed them after. They always escaped if the police were involved. I was so scared that I actually thought I was gonna faint. But not only was I beautiful, but I was also smart. I broke myself free quietly and helped the woman on my left. We snuck out and I got in my car. I could see John's silhouette staring at me and smiling. We called the police while driving off quickly. We met up with the police 2 minutes later and went to the abandoned restaurant. But John was nowhere to be seen. To this day, I still get the creeps. If I had been 2 seconds late to drive away, what would have happened to me?
The very first night of my job as a pizza delivery guy turned out to be something that you would only expect to happen in movies. The incident gave me sleepless nights, and I remember suffering from sleep paralysis thereafter. It was in February. We were nearing our closing time. The other delivery guy who would normally stay until closing time had left early that day for whatever reason. I remember him mentioning some personal, unavoidable problem. All of a sudden, the phone on the counter rang. It was past midnight, and we didn't think it was strange for someone to call at this hour for pizza, probably midnight cravings. But then it hit me. I was going to be the one to deliver it. The manager had received the call and gave me the address the caller had mentioned. I looked back at him with a frustrated look and he shrugged. I had no choice. The manager said I better be quick as he would have to wait till I came back. The chef handed the pizza to me with a frown, and I could clearly read the annoyance on his face. I didn't recognize the place and the address at first, but I was accustomed to delivering to addresses I had not heard of before. This particular address was difficult to find. After a lot of hassle, I found the house at the town outskirts. It was the last house in a row of houses opposite a long stretch of thicket. Forests have often freaked me out, so I decided to make it quick and get back as soon as possible. When I neared the house, I observed the front door to be ajar. Strange. I rang the doorbell repeatedly, but no one answered. Suddenly, a gust of wind threw open the front door even more, and I was able to make out the interiors of the drawing room. Brightly lit with all the lights on and completely empty. I entered anyway and called out for someone. No sound but a low, pleasant music playing from the cassette player on the cabinet beside me. It was so eerily silent with that music in the background that I started freaking out. I could hear my own breathing. Only then, from behind the door in the far corner, did I hear a sound. I headed towards that room. Shouldn't have. When I opened the door, I was expecting the caller, but I got the nightmare of my life. It was a person, all right, but dead. Almost. The corpse was lying on the bed in a pool of blood. Its abdomen was tore open, and the eyes directly looking at me. I wanted to throw up. In a split second, I was out of the house, not caring about who it was, or who did that, or the cold pizza in the box. I ran for my life, just before pausing in horror at a face staring from behind the door of the same room where I had just been. It was a man, showing only his head from behind the door, with a sickening smile on its face. I had been in the same room with that man for a minute or so. This was enough for me. I stepped on the gas and sped to my shop, throwing the pizza at my clueless manager, and from there to my home, where I laid for 4 days with a high fever. I quit my job thereafter. But what struck me afterwards was that no other houses except that cursed home had their lights on. It was like all of them were abandoned. I shrugged off that feeling at the time, but now as I come to think of that, I shudder. What was that place? Hi, my name is Aiden. My mom always wanted a daughter. When she gave birth to me, my father told me that she didn't look that happy at all. She kept trying and trying to get pregnant again, but it never worked. When I was 2, she stopped trying and adopted a girl instead. She named her Ivy. Ivy was just a year older than me, so she was 3 years old. And for a month, everything was okay and my mom was satisfied, until some strange things started happening. My father told me that at night she would hold a knife while standing in front of my door. He thought that she was sleepwalking and probably had some childhood trauma causing those types of dreams, so he brushed it off. Eventually, she stopped doing it after a few months and we all forgot about it. But when she turned 8, things started to happen again. She would talk to herself in the morning and get very aggressive. I tried to tell my mom several times, but she said it was normal. I was terrified of my sister. One night at 2 a.m., she screamed in a terrifying pitch. My parents rushed to her room and her eyes were bloodshot, and she was scratching her arm aggressively. On the following morning, my mom called a doctor about her behavior, and they took her away. On my 10th birthday, my sister returned and looked normal. "Surprise!" my mom said whilst holding her hand. Honestly, I felt happy that I could see her again. We played games and had fun until it was time for me to sleep. I randomly woke up to see my sister next to my bed. She was holding a knife, tearing into my arm. Her eyes were wide open, and she had a blood-curdling smile that will never leave my head. I passed out. I woke up in a hospital bed and saw my mom crying next to me. Suddenly, I remembered Ivy and asked my mom where she was, and all she said was, "She's gone."
I am a 14-year-old who experienced something really scary. My sister started acting strange around my birthday. When I was a kid, she used to pull a lot of pranks on me, like push me down the stairs and cut my hair. So I asked her one day, why does she continue to pull pranks on me? And she told me that she was just playing. So when I was about to go tell our mom, she grabbed my hand and had a big sinister look on her face, which really startled me. She said, "You don't have to tell," and she skipped away. The next day, I woke up with her standing over me, just staring at me, which really had me shook. So I slapped her to snap her out of it. She just turned her head again and stared again at me with that sinister smile as I froze. I tried to scream out to my mom as I was hearing footsteps. She opened my door and I looked very pale, and she asked me what I was looking at, and I said, "Sis." My mom responded, "What do you mean? She died 2 years ago."
I've been working with the Denver Park Rangers and police. They're not telling me anything. They said they have the situation under control. I am not convinced. Here's my last conversation with Dylan. 9:25 a.m. Please tell me you're calling the police?
Hang on. I'm going to see how bad of shape the car is in, and yes, I'm calling them.
All right, let me know ASAP. 11:45 a.m. What's going on? 12:30 p.m.
We'll text later. Not safe.
Dylan, please let me know what's going on. 2:15 p.m.
All right, I have a second to catch you up. I can call you, but I have to keep my voice low. This is so messed up, dude. I don't know what to do. I don't want to be here. Also, my iPhone is dying, and I'm going to have to switch over to the shitty flip phone I use for work.
What the fuck, dude? What do you mean by not safe?
So I went to try and start my car to get a quick charge on my iPhone and see how bad the tires were. The engine wouldn't even turn over. The scarecrow was standing right in front of my car, like a foot away. It smelled so bad, dude, like rotting meat. I called the police and told them about the car and that I was stuck. They transferred me to the ranger station to explain where I was for assistance. That's when it got weird.
What do you mean?
The ranger seemed pretty lax about it at first, like, "Where are you? Stay calm. We'll send help. Just stay where you are," etc. Monotone voice, like he's used to it. But then I mentioned the scarecrow, and the ranger was different.
Different?
He became really serious and panicked.
Here's how it went.
Did you say scarecrow?
Yes, sir.
I need you to be very clear and very honest, son. What exactly did it look like?
I described the one back at camp, wearing my hat.
And you said there is one by your car now?
Yeah, it smells terrible.
What is this one wearing?
Nothing. Just burlap and cloth. This one's face is frowning. Wait. It looks like something is on its chest. It has a piece of paper pinned to it.
Anything else?
Yeah, something is written on the paper.
Son, I need you to listen to me very clearly.
Okay.
I have some bad news. I'm in my truck now, and I was headed your way. The bridge leading into your trail is partially collapsed and impassable. We're not sure how it happened, but we have emergency crews working on it now. I need you to start moving this instant, right now. You are at the north side of the mountain, and I need you to go to the south face. That's where we'll meet. Do you have a compass and map?
Yes, sir.
Good. All right. Here is the exact point to meet.
He explained where to go.
That's the exact point where I will meet you. Do not stay where you are. Get away from your car. Most importantly, do not hang around any of those scarecrows. Do you understand me? If you see any more, I want you to run as fast as you can away from it. Clear?
I will. Trust me.
I need you to keep moving.
What's going on? Am I in danger? What does the scarecrow have to do with anything?
Listen, just keep moving while the sun is up, and make as little noise as possible. Are you wearing bright clothing?
No, I'm not. I have a dark brown coat and gray pants.
Good. Try and stay out of plain sight as much as possible. Move quickly, and call me if you see or hear anything unnatural.
Unnatural?
You'll know. But only make phone calls if absolutely necessary. When night falls, stay warm and hidden. No fires. If you hear anything in the night, do not run. Stay as still and quiet as possible.
Wait, will you tell me what I should be looking for?
Get moving south now.
Wait, Then he just hung up.
Where are you now?
Moving south. There's creepy stuff going on.
What do you mean?
I walked by the spot where my campsite was last night. The scarecrow, the one that was wearing my hat, it wasn't there.
Just gone?
Yes. Nothing at all.
Dude, I am so sorry you're going through this. My eyes are watering just reading your texts.
I hate this, man. I just want to be home.
You gotta do what the ranger said, and we'll get you out of there. Do you have data on your work phone?
No, just talk and text.
Great. Plenty of battery?
Yes, thank God.
3:03 p.m.
I'm exhausted and scared as hell. Still making my way to the other trail on the south side to meet the ranger.
Keep moving. 3:44 p.m.
I see the scarecrow. The one from my camp. It's up in a tree. Way up in the tree. Oh, dude, fuck. How did it get so high up there?
What the fuck? Send me a pic.
I can't get a good shot. It's so high up, and this camera sucks. It's just hanging there. It looks like it's staring at me. Oh, God, I'm so freaked out and tired. Something's dripping off of it.
Get away from it, Dylan. 4:17 p.m.
The sun's about to set. I'm going to find a place to sleep.
Dylan, you never told me what was on that note. The one that was pinned to the scarecrow by the car. 4:32 p.m.
Oh, shit. You're right. It said, "Are you scared yet?"
Who the fuck do you think is doing this? Dylan? 7:01 p.m. Dylan, are you okay? Text me back when you can. I don't want to waste your battery. 2:02 a.m.
It's getting closer.
What is? 2:04 a.m.
It's right next to me. Oh, God, I need help. Fuck, what is this thing? Oh my God, oh my God. Is this thing even human? It can't be. It stopped. I'm behind a tree. I don't know if it knows where I am. Oh, fuck, that smell. It's so bad. I'm gonna make a run for it. It's too close.
2:05. Oh, fuck, please tell me you're okay. What is it? Dylan? 2:19 a.m. Dylan, I'm gonna call the police. Oh, shit, dude, what happened? 2:49 a.m. I called the police. They're looking for you at the south face, where the ranger said he would meet you. Please, please, please tell me you made it. 2:57 a.m. Dylan?
Hello.
Dylan, are you okay? What happened? 3:41.
Hello.
Dylan?
Hello. Hello. Hello.
4:13 a.m.
Are you scared yet?
4:14 a.m. What the fuck? Where the fuck are you? Are you okay? Dylan? That's the last I've heard from him. I'm working with the authorities now, and they're trying to track Dylan's phones. Update. I just heard back from the police. All they found was another scarecrow. It was sitting in the driver's seat of Dylan's car. It was wearing a dark brown coat and gray pants. The scarecrow was filled with meat. They're not sure what kind. The police are having me fly out to Denver now.
This happened 3 months ago when I was walking to work. I saw a car stop by me and the window opened, and there was a guy with a cracked face and a very creepy smile in a limo car. And then he said to me, "Oh, looks like you want to go to work. Well, hop into my car so you can arrive faster." And then I said, "No thank you," and he left. At the office, when it was time to go home, I chose the elevator so I could get down to the main floor faster. When the elevator opened, I saw the guy I had seen earlier with the cracked face and creepy smile. He was in the elevator with the other employees, and then he said, "Come on in, there's still room for you." And then I said, "No thank you," and instead chose the stairs. When I got downstairs, I heard a scream. So I quickly went down the rest of the stairs, and then I saw the elevator full of blood and dead bodies. I was scared and quickly called 911 and told them what happened, and then I realized that the guy with the cracked face was gone. After that incident happened, I never ever worked at that place again. What would have happened if I'd gone in the elevator or hopped in his car? At least I'm still alive. My name is Darshana, and I live in Oman. I am 13 now, but this happened to me when I was 10. Our exams got over, and we all were planning what to do during holidays. I suggested we go on a trip, but our parents were so busy we could not go. So our friend Karan suggested we play video games in the morning and afternoon, go for a walk in the evening, and play a football match, and then at night we would all go to his house for a sleepover, and at 12 o'clock that night, we would sneak out my brother Arjun, who was just 6. He got scared and told us he was not coming, but we made fun of him and forced him to come. On the other hand, my friend Sahana was very excited. I lived on the 3rd floor, and 3 of my friends also lived on the 3rd floor, and the other 2 lived on the 4th floor. There was one lady on the 5th floor who hated us because we'd had a fight with her kid. So when we snuck out, all 7 of us, we saw the lady outside who hated us. Her name was Mary. She smiled and laughed and talked to us, and we were shocked she was not angry with us. Then we told her goodbye and left. We did a few rounds in the park, playing, and got back home at 3 a.m. and slept. The next day, our friend Karan woke everyone, and we all went down to see what had happened. To our surprise, Mary was dead there. Her son said she had died around 9 p.m., and they found her this morning. She had died from falling off the balcony. The 7 of us were in shock. Then who talked to us last night at midnight? After this incident, 1 year later on the same day, September 30th, we all got a text message from an unknown number. It said, "I will come back." After this, we didn't sneak out of house at all anymore.
This is a story about me, Teresa, and my best friend Sasha. We were such pretty girls growing up, so the boys were all over us, especially a boy named Aiden Cummings. He grew obsessed with us. We hung out every single weekend, and whenever we did, we always caught him staring in our windows. He was generally a weird kid, and he never had friends, so we felt bad for him. One day, our friends were hanging out, and he asked if he could come. We allowed him because we felt bad. We went to the park, which is a couple of houses away from us. We called it the Green Park. We were there for about an hour before we went back to my house. Everything was going fine, but he was being really suspiciously quiet. We were outside on the trampoline for a while, and he said he had to go to the bathroom, so he went inside my house. After about 30 minutes, we got really concerned, so we went inside to check on him. What we saw is something I will never forget. We saw him watching my hamster blow up in the microwave. He put my hamster in the microwave while we were outside. It was the strangest thing I had ever seen, so I immediately told him to leave my house. I could not call the police because I thought it was a silly thing to do, but I didn't know what to do. Me and Sasha were having a sleepover. We saw a dude with a creepy mask outside my window. We were insanely annoyed because we clearly didn't want to be friends with them, so we called the police. At that moment, we noticed he was holding my cat by its neck and holding a knife near it. We were horrified. It was perfect timing when we heard the police sirens going off, and he dropped my cat and ran. We didn't hear anything from him for days, until we got notified that his parents were both brutally stabbed to death. Every night I wonder if the police hadn't arrived at that time, if we would still be alive to this day. Rip my hamster Queenie.
My mom told me about her old friend from when she was 12, and there was a boy she always used to hang out with, and they were great friends. Her friend lived with his dad only, and his parents were divorced, but she still lived in the city. Then one day he moved, and my mom never saw him again until she was 38. She found him on Facebook and she tried texting him, but he never responded. She texted one of her old friends she kept in contact with and told her that she found the guy they used to hang out with when they were little, and she said he never responds to my texts. And then her friend told her that he killed his mom and was on the run, so he couldn't get caught. He kidnapped her and took her to the woods and decapitated her head. He cut it off and put it in a bag and hid it in the dirt and threw her body in a lake. When my mom heard this, she went quiet and didn't text her friend. She all of a sudden gets a text from the guy and he said, "Hey, sorry I didn't respond." And my mom said, "Hey, how is your family? How is your mom?" And the guy said, "Good, my mom is okay." And my mom was shocked, so she blocked him off of Facebook and reported him. And she never spoke to him again. She wonders what would have happened if her other friend didn't tell her about this, and her and the guy ended up meeting somewhere.
I don't like museums, but my girlfriend does. I'm 17, and this is a true story that was traumatizing to me and my girlfriend. She's a redhead and likes to wear dresses, but me, I like to wear jeans and a black shirt. But anyways, since I'm a girl, my dad would always make me go out with a pocket knife for protection. My girlfriend forgot her charger, and that was the only one she had, so we started looking for it, as I was watching my favorite channel 1C, as it's the only channel with good stories. My girlfriend let out a loud scream as she was pointing to a body. It was a security guard. Just then, we heard a loud bang in a dark corner, and another guard came out with a bright light. He said he would help us get out if we follow him, so we started walking further and further until my girlfriend kept backing into me. She fell, and when I looked at her face, she was very pale and had a cold sweat like she was resisting fainting. But before she did her best to point at the guard's hand, and then she fainted in my arms. I looked up at the guard again, and in his hands was a knife, so I grabbed my pocket knife, and I looked up again, and there was a storage. It finally clicked, so I ran fast, but I tripped like an idiot in the horror films, and a loud bump from my girlfriend's head as I dropped her on the floor. He looked mad at my girlfriend and started to go over to her. I jumped up and punched him in his neck. My girlfriend woke up and saw her phone. Hers was dead, so she called the police on mine, as he was blacked out. And I almost fainted for some reason, but I didn't because I still had some adrenaline. When the police arrived, they looked at us and said, "You girls are very lucky." Turns out he was a rapist and a murderer. I fainted because of blood loss. but I'm fine. So is the security guard. Now my girlfriend still gets nightmares, which leads her to scream almost every night. Whatever you do, don't go to museums at night. Also, the guy looked tired but beat up and had long, blonde, greasy hair, which kind of reminded me of a kid in kindergarten named Michael Brenner, who always hated me because he thought I was annoying and said he would kill me one day. What do you think I should do? He keeps sending me letters saying drastic things.
A few years back, I can remember it was my birthday, and I was going to school expecting everyone to bombard me with birthday wishes. By the way, I was turning 14 and I was in the 8th grade. When I got to school, everyone did exactly what I thought because I was pretty popular. As I walked through all of my friends, I approached my locker, and as I looked up, I noticed a new janitor cleaning something up by the boys' bathroom, which was at the end of the hallway where no one ever goes. I've never seen that janitor before, but when I saw him, he stopped mopping the floor. He stood up straight, smiled, and said, "Happy birthday, gorgeous." I just looked at him, and then I walked to my first class as fast as I could. By the time we hit 5th period lunch, a few of us noticed that our friend Martin wasn't in school. Every year, he would always get the perfect attendance award, so this wasn't normal for him. We all made it to 6th period, and I had to go to the bathroom because I was actually on my period and had to change my pad and pee. When I walked into the bathroom, I noticed that one of the stalls was out of order, and another one was occupied. And being that there were only 3 stalls, I went to the middle stall, while someone else was in the one right next to me. So as I was using the bathroom, I noticed that there wasn't any toilet paper, so I asked the person in this next stall to me. I said, "Hey, can you hand me some toilet paper?" And immediately the girl threw some toilet paper on the floor from her stall to mine. I thought that was rude and awkward. So I did what I had to do, and I started to switch my pad when I heard, "You definitely look like a grown woman to me." The voice came from above me on my left. I looked up, and above me, peeking over the stall, was that new janitor. He was standing on the toilet. I got up, began to run, but he reached over the wall and he grabbed my hair. It jerked me back, but he lost his grip. I ran out of the bathroom and I ran to the closest classroom and I told the teacher. He ran into the bathroom as the man was running out of the bathroom, and they both ran into each other and fell to the floor. The teacher got up and got on the guy's back and began to choke him as the female teacher told all the kids who rushed the hallway to get back in the classrooms. She also called the police. When the cops showed up, the man woke up. Our teacher actually put the guy out. He put him to sleep. Cops apprehended the man, and he immediately told them to check locker 111. It was a vacant locker. The man said that he was waiting outside of our school in the shadows and saw the boys from our basketball team leaving practice the night before at around 6 p.m. And at that point, it was dark outside, because it was the winter. Then he noticed someone walking by themselves. It was our friend Martin. The man approached Martin in his van, and he overpowered him and he got him to his van. What he did to him was unspeakable. Then he took Martin back to our school, broke in without triggering the alarm, and stuffed him in locker 111. Come to find out, this man didn't even work at our school. He was just cleaning the mess that he made, and he stayed in the school all day without anyone questioning who he was. So the police asked him why he did what he did. What was his motive? His answer simply was, "I don't know, because it was Tuesday."
Hi, my name's Blessing. I live in the Philippines. This happened when I was in 6th grade. I was at my school and eating my lunch with my 2 classmates, Miguel and Riza. After we ate, we thought about taking a walk around, so we went to a building at our school and went up to the top floor, the 4th floor. In the building we went to, there was another building in front of it, and it hadn't been used by the students because it was newly built. Anyway, back to the story. We were on the 4th floor overlooking the buildings and trees around the campus and getting some fresh air. After an hour, we decided to go back to our classroom so that we wouldn't be late for our class. As I was walking, I looked at the building opposite to us, and I saw a boy running around the classroom. He looked like he was a third grader. I wondered why there was a student in there because, as I said a while ago, it couldn't be used yet. Another reason is that the doors to enter there were also locked. And while the boy was running around, I was carefully watching him. I did not expect what happened next. The boy ran straight into the wall, and I thought he would be hurt. But no, he disappeared after he bumped into the wall. My eyes widened in shock. So I told Miguel and Riza to hurry back to our classroom. After that day, I could not get that boy out of my mind. A few weeks later, as I was going to school, I heard rumors about the boy who was always seen by our school security guard every night when he was walking around the campus. After I heard about that, I remembered the boy I saw who ran into the wall. I thought I was daydreaming, but what I saw was definitely true. Until now, it remains a mystery to me who that boy was and why he was in that building. One more thing. Our school used to be a burial place for the dead during the Spanish period.
This incident happened when I was 8 years old. I'm 13 now, and I have a twin brother. Let's call him Kyle for now. In second grade, Kyle had an eye injury that damaged one of his eyes for quite some time. He went in for daily checkups and all that medical stuff. One night, he woke up screaming and crying because of his eye pain. My parents had immediately taken him to the hospital, leaving me and my 5-year-old brother alone at home. We both decided to watch some YouTube instead of sleeping, since my little brother can't sleep without my mom. We were both watching some videos, and then someone rang the doorbell. We both got up to answer the bell when I realized my parents had taken the key with them and the door was locked. So if it was my parents, they would have unlocked the door themselves and come in instead of ringing the doorbell. "Who's there?" I asked, and no one responded. I asked twice more and still no response. I told my little brother to go back to his room just in case because he was already getting freaked out. I figured someone had been playing Ding Dong Ditch, but at midnight? I ask one more time, and the person answers. I hear crying on the other side of the door, which sounded exactly like Kyle. "Kyle?" I ask, kind of confused. He tells me to open the door. Now, I live in an apartment, and my parents won't ever make Kyle go up alone with an eye injury like that and wait in the parking lot. I was really confused, so I asked, "Did Mom give you the keys?" "Go back down there and get the keys. The door is locked." I hear him cry even louder and groan as he keeps repeating the same "open the door" line. So I try to soothe him and tell him to go back down. I tell him one last time to go get the keys, but this happened and I hear no response. So I call my dad on the phone and ask him to give Kyle the keys and help him out and tell him sending Kyle alone was a bad idea. My dad is equally confused and tells me that they're still in the hospital and Kyle is with them. I start freaking out and he tells me that it was probably the night guard, but it didn't make any sense. I don't go back to the door and wait till my parents come home. When they finally come home, I tell Kyle what happened, but he didn't have any idea what I was talking about. I still wonder, what would have happened if I had the keys that night and opened the door for the fake Kyle? I live in Malaysia, where the weather is always warm and sunny most of the time. I was 7 years old when this strange encounter happened. My family has a house with 3 bedrooms upstairs. One room for my parents and baby brother, who was 1 and too young to sleep in his own room. I have another brother who was about 5 years old at the time. We both slept in the other bedroom together as we were scaredy cats who couldn't fall asleep alone at night. Our bed is quite big, and both of us fit comfortably together. We used to have a nightlight on as well as we slept. The headboard of the bed is against the wall, and opposite of it is the bedroom window, which is wide with blinds that are usually open. When laying down in bed, I usually look straight out the window, where I can see my neighbor's house and a few trees at the side, which create shadows on my window. One night, I woke up from my sleep. I didn't know why, but I didn't think much about it. The nightlight was still on, and I wanted to go back to sleep until something caught my eye. My eyes darted towards the window, and there I saw a black figure. It didn't seem to be a shadow made by a tree outside, as it had a weird human-like shape. It was small in size, and the head was horizontal oval. I sat up straighter in my bed. I wanted to wake up my 5-year-old brother, but I didn't dare move, thinking if I made another move that thing might break in. It stood rigid outside my window, staring at me. It was completely black without any facial features. Like a complete shadow, but I could feel it staring at me. Suddenly, out of nowhere, it started to vibrate. Like how pictures on television go static. That's what was happening to the shadow. It started going static. What was even weirder, I started to smile. I smiled at the figure going static. I even giggled at the thing. I don't know why. Maybe because I found it stupidly weird at how this thing was going static, and it seemed funny to me. I began to stand up on my bed to get a closer look at it, but to my utter horror, it stopped vibrating. It stood completely still. And what happened next horrified me. The figure opened its eyes, which were all white. Its eyes arched down, which showed anger, and turned its head down at me. I fell onto my bed and pulled the blanket over me. I didn't run out of the room. I was too scared to move, afraid it would get me if I did. I ended up falling asleep and woke up the next day. I told my little brother what happened, that I saw a weird-looking figure outside, that, with much thought, kind of resembled an alien. He believed me, of course. Since he's only 5, he believes anything. I went down to tell my parents during breakfast and told them what I saw, but even though I expected them not to believe me, I was annoyed when they laughed at my story. "You sure you weren't dreaming?" my dad said. "No, I saw it. It was real. I wasn't dreaming," I said. "You know, it could be the trees casting shadows, making you see things," my dad said. I gave up trying to make them understand. A few years had passed, and I sleep alone in my room without a nightlight, and I'm not afraid to sleep alone anymore. As I grew older and more mature, but after that experience, I always keep the blinds closed every night. Hi, I'd like to share a story that happened to my parents shortly after my birth. I retell the words of my father, my uncle, and grandparents. Before the wedding, my biological mother looked like an absolutely normal woman. She was a very pleasant person and a music teacher. However, soon after I was born, she began to behave strangely. She and my father moved to live in the flat of his parents, and for a while everything was just fine. But then she began to look detached, as if she fell out of reality for a while, and didn't react to anything that was happening around her, including her own child. She would sit for hours staring at one point. Then she developed insomnia and crying attacks, during which she claimed that everyone around her was offending, insulting her, and hypnotizing her. My grandmother often had to calm her down. She scared my uncle, my dad's younger brother, very much. When he got up one night to use the bathroom, he saw her standing like a lifeless statue or a ghost in the middle of the corridor, in a long nightgown with her long hair loose. He's still afraid to see me with my hair loose because he said that I resemble her a lot this way. The last straw was an incident one night when my father woke up and saw her with a deathly pale face, standing over him with a razor blade in her hand and repeating, "Love will win. Love will win." Soon after that, she was already taken to the city mental hospital. 3 men could hardly contain her. She rushed about like a wild animal and shouted the same phrase, Love will win. Love will win. When they got to the mental hospital, it turned out that she had already been registered with a psychiatrist. She hid it from my father that she was sick with schizophrenia for fear that he wouldn't marry her. But in the end, she was admitted to the hospital for treatment. And when she got out, my father filed for divorce for my safety. Since then, I've been living with my grandparents and regularly call up and see my biological mother. They don't mind, and she confirmed this story. Now she's successfully treated, takes pills, and even still works as a teacher, only now she gives private lessons. The psychiatrist confirmed that schizophrenia wasn't inherited by me, but I'm still almost afraid of becoming like her one day.
As a 14-year-old boy, I've experienced some scary things, but this has to be the scariest. This happened to me during the summer of 2019. On this day, I was headed to my cousin's house for a party. He told me that he had also invited a family friend, who he and I were close with, so I was fine with it. Due to privacy reasons, my cousin will be referred to as H, and my family friend will be A. It was around 4 p.m. when I left my house. H lives about 40 minutes away from me, so it was a decently long drive. It's good to know that H lives at the end of a cul-de-sac, which is the end of a street. On his right and left there were neighbors, but in front of his house there was only a forest. I arrived at H's house around 5. I said hello to his family and other people there. I also greeted H and A, and we decided to go swimming. H has a big swimming pool in his backyard. We swam for about 3 hours. After, we were just chilling in H's room playing video games and just talking. Our parents told us that they were going out and asked us if we wanted to come. We all said no, so they left, meaning the only people that were at home were me, H, and A. About an hour later, I got the bright idea of ding-dong ditching. Since this story took place during the summer at 9 p.m., it wasn't all that dark out. We skipped a bunch of streets, then started ding-dong ditching houses, each house giving funny reactions. The next house we got to, we all agreed was going to be our last house. The weird thing that we would do is play rock, paper, scissors to decide who would ding-dong ditch the house. H did the last house, so it was between me and A. I ended up losing, so I went to go ring the doorbell of the house. I rang the doorbell and ran. I hid behind a car that was parked across the street. A and H were hiding in bushes near the car. I would have hidden behind the bushes as well, but the bushes were farther from the house, so that would risk me being seen. I waited a good 2 minutes, then the door opened. A tall man emerged. The man was white, about 6'5" with a beard. What happened next surprised me. As soon as the man opened the door, he ran in my direction, yelling, "Come here, I won't hurt you." I did what anyone would do. I took off running. The man kept repeating that phrase to me. That only caused me to run faster. I ran so fast and far that I don't even know when the man stopped running after me, but eventually he did. I had my phone on me, so after I took a rest from running so much, I got a call from H. Here's how the conversation went. H: "Yo, dude, you okay?" Me: "Yeah, I'm fine. This is crazy. The guy literally chased me. Meet me back at your house." I ran back to H's house. I entered his backyard through the backyard side gate. Then I entered his house through the back door, locking it behind me. The adults weren't home yet. That never happened to me before while ding-dong ditching, so I was freaking out a little bit, but I calmed down. I told A and H what the man was saying to me while he chased me. A tried to help us forget about it by saying, "Let's go watch a movie in H's room." While we were walking up the stairs, we heard H's backyard side gate open and close. A said, "What if that's the parents?" I called my mom and she said they were nowhere near the house yet. After hearing this, my heart sank. I told A and H this, and they were starting to freak out as well. I went downstairs and screamed. H and A both came and asked what happened. I told them to look at the backyard door. H screamed like me, and A said, "Holy shit!" There was a man wearing all black, staring at us through the backyard door. I could make it out to be the same man who had been chasing me. and in his hand, I could see what looked like a baseball bat. The man tried the doorknob, twisting it until the lock kept on restricting it. He started laughing like a mentally insane person, and then he said, "Come out to play. I won't hurt you." Then he continued to laugh like the Joker. We were all frozen in fear. I had never been so scared in my life. I said to the man, "I'm calling the police." It was a bluff, but it worked. We see the man disappear from the backyard door and hear the backyard side gate open and close shut. We quickly ran to an upstairs window to see the man waving at us, then running into the forest, never to be seen again. We promised each other to never tell anyone, and we didn't. I and A stayed the night at H's house because we were planning to before anyway. I still get scared to this day thinking about what happened. The man chased me for who knows how long, then showed up at H's backyard door. There was nothing stopping the man from breaking the glass door and coming into the house. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if he did break the glass, or I just simply forgot to lock the door. This happened about 2 years ago. It's now just a distant memory that I decide not to think about. I'm still chill with A and H, but we have not been ding-dong ditching since then. This is a story my cousin told me. My cousin had a best friend in high school named Frank. They would look the exact same if Frank had a different hairstyle. But they both liked the same girl, which was a huge problem. They would have fights every day about who was better. But one day, he stopped showing up, and my cousin hasn't seen him since. Soon, my cousin won her over, and they're now married. One day, my cousin was driving home from a long business trip when he got a text from my sister-in-law saying she got a text from an unknown number that claims to be my cousin. My cousin said not to answer, but my sister-in-law was very brave. The message said to come to a hut in the woods, and my sister-in-law, being very curious, went there. But she was smart and she sent the location to my cousin for him to go there too. After a while, he got a text from her saying it was a false alarm and it was just his twin. Apparently, he just wanted to surprise her and congratulate her for their marriage. He made her a nice meal and set it up like a date, which made her very uncomfortable. Then my cousin told her to get out of the house at once and that he was very close. She asked why, and my cousin said, "I don't have a twin." She rushed out there at once and looked back and saw him chasing her. But thankfully he was there and grabbed my sister-in-law in his car and drove outside the woods. He called the police and they found him. He was Frank, and he just wanted revenge for him stealing his girl. When he disappeared, he was in jail for harassing multiple women.
This happened back in 2017. I was 13 at the time. Here in my country, there's no middle school, so I'm a high schooler technically. I'm a boy with black wavy short hair. I have brown eyes, light tan skin. I'm 5'7". I wear a beanie all the time, and I'm also a skater. I love to hang out with my fellas. Sometimes we cut class and pass over the metal fence just to find some place to skate. There's no official skate park here in town, except the old one, which is kinda avoided by many teenagers. We're in a group of 7 people. Me, Baron, Frazier, Ulysses, Christian, Easton, and Klein. All of us are 13, except Klein. He was 15. It's May, the peak of summer. We headed to where the old skate park was located, which is in the southwest part of town. The metal fence is very mossy and rusty, so anyone from the outside can't see on the inside. There were many rumors that said it was open back in 2002, but a tragic event happened and it was shut down by the local government. Klein was a complete rebel, so he climbed up the fence. "Come on, don't be such a coward," he said. I'm totally uncomfortable and my hands are trembling. Despite the "something is wrong here" mindset, I continued. As I passed by the fence, I saw the old and dirty skate park. My friends were already skating and doing their stunts. As I was doing a double flip on my skateboard, I accidentally fell on the slide and scraped my forehead on the cement and caused it to bleed. I asked my friends for help and they ignored me and continued skating like nothing had happened. I shouted, In response, they stared at me blankly, and the statement of, "We clearly heard you," that was all over their face, really made me mad. I was so mad, I began to walk away. I headed to the metallic fence. As I was passing by, a few arms grabbed my shirt and forcibly pulled me. I fell, and I saw my friends rotting, like they were the walking dead. I was terrified, crawling back to the fence. They came closer and closer until they were a few centimeters away from my face. Their breath smelled like dead mice, which hurt my nostrils. They're whispering, "We're lonely." I closed my eyes. A couple of minutes have passed, the smell vanished, and their presence wasn't felt anymore, so I opened my eyes. I was shocked that I was inside the abandoned skate park. I'm wet, and it was raining intensely. I quickly climbed up the fence and found my friends on the other side, and they had a worried expression on their faces. "Caleb, we're worried about you," Christian said. I asked what happened, and they told me that I climbed up the fence to the skate park all by myself, like I'm not on my own. They heard me scream, "I'm lonely," over and over again. Also, they knew that we were avoiding the old park since much of its history includes cultic activities from the 1950s. Possession of some skaters back in 2002 and the crash site of a local airplane happened in the 90s. I'm wondering how I could have snapped out from that nightmarish event without the rain. As they say, water is a great waker.
My name is Melissa, and I was at my grandparents' house with my cousin Andrea. My grandparents live in the countryside in a rather isolated spot. We had decided to go for a walk to explore the surroundings. We walked for a long time to reach a place where there was a very busy road, and on the side there was a private property blocked from access by a gate. Further on, we spotted a small passage leading into the field, so we decided to go. This place actually leads to the private property seen a little earlier. Entering it, we saw a large space where there were swamps and kind of a mini lake. This lake was surrounded by trees and bushes, and therefore not very visible outside the property. As we approached, we could see an orange life jacket on the ground. In front of us, there was a wooden pontoon. We wanted to go, but we first had to walk a very narrow path by the side of the lake to access it. While we were walking, we saw a sort of blue plastic tube with a rusty metal stopper filled with marble, with illegible writings on it. Continuing on, we saw huge nutria in the lake, and therefore turned around. As we retraced our steps, we noticed a can of yellow gasoline, a pair of torn shoes, and pieces of pipes scattered all over the place, as if people lived there. Andrea decided to go to the small forest next door, where you could hardly see inside the car. There were a lot of trees. I preferred to stay near the lake because I had a very bad feeling. To give her courage, I spoke to her, but the more she walked, the weaker her voice was. But I still managed to hear that she had arrived at a place where it was a broken blue dresser with a sleeping bag and a wooden cabin. She kept going, but suddenly she stopped talking, and I had no news from her for a few minutes. Panicked, I decided to call her, but I fell directly on her voicemail. I was nervous and started to worry. I looked around, repeating Andrea's name and number so many times, and that's where I saw him. A tall man who was about 6 feet tall and extremely thin. He had skin on his bones, very hollow cheeks, and huge dark circles, as if he hadn't slept in days. He kept whispering words over and over that we could hardly hear. All I could understand was that he was speaking in another language. It sounded like gibberish. He had a blood-stained axe in his hand. Terrorized, I prayed it wasn't Andrea's. Unfortunately, I couldn't wait for it because the man started chasing at me at maddening speed. I ran with all of my strength until I finally reached the road. Fortunately, cars circulated, they were moving, and the man had returned to the woods. My fear was at its peak, but I kept running along the road to get away from there. As I was running, it was a miracle. I saw in front of me 100 yards the silhouette of a young girl my age. And that silhouette actually belonged to Andrea. I ran to her in tears, and we returned to our grandparents with fear in our guts. Like me, she had managed to escape by taking another passage. It's been 4 years since this event happened, and I still wonder what would have happened to us if this man had caught up to us.
This happened to me when I was 7 or 8 years old. Me and my mom were getting ready to go buy lunch at my aunt's shop, when suddenly my little sister Rihanna whispered to me and said, "Don't go buy lunch with Mom." I was shocked and said, "You're just jealous because Mom takes me with her and not you." My mom then called me and said, "We are leaving now, kiss your siblings," and I kissed all of them except my little sister. We then drove off and finally arrived at my aunt's little shop. I saw her smiling at me and I smiled back at her. I really love my aunt, and suddenly I spotted my uncle looking at me, and I just shrugged it off. My uncle was a very kind and happy man until he got in a car accident and was in a coma. My mom was shopping around and I was sitting in the corner on my phone minding my own business. My uncle sat right next to me, and I was shocked because he didn't even know who I was, and he said to me, "I have so many toys in the basement. Can you get them for me?" And I said, "Sure, Uncle." And I was so excited, and I went down there, and I shouted, "Uncle, where's the toys?" My uncle said, "Don't move," and he had a knife in his hand. And I said, "Uncle, what are you doing?" He suddenly started swinging the knife at my face, and I saw all this blood, and right before I passed out, I saw my mom running after me. When I finally woke up, I saw my mom crying and my aunt saying sorry hundreds of times to my mom. When they saw me waking up, my mom hugged me so tight, and my aunt just stared at me, smiling creepily. I just closed my eyes and told my mom what just happened in the basement, and what she said gave me goosebumps and shocked me. She said, "Your uncle was trying to kill you, and when I saw you, I had to cover your face with a blanket because I couldn't stand to see all the blood. Your uncle was just dancing around you, and when he saw me, he tried to kill me too. And I kicked him so hard it knocked him out, and I called the police right away." I asked my mom, "Can I see my face?" And she grabbed her tiny circle mirror in her bag. And when I saw my face, I began crying a lot because I have a big scar on my left eyebrow and my cheeks. We got a call from the police that my uncle had escaped a mental hospital, and when I heard that, I just froze on the spot. When my mom and I got home, my little sister just hugged me and cried, saying, "I told you not to go with Mom." And then I had remembered that she said that to me before I left, and I just began crying. Now I'm 17 years old, and I still can't get this memory out of my head. If you see my uncle, be careful, because maybe one day he will do to you what he did to me. My name is Taya. I'm 18 years old, but this happened to me back when I was 15. I come from a really big family. I'm the oldest of 7 kids, meaning that I have 6 younger siblings. Recently, my siblings and I were taken into foster care due to us losing our home. My mom, who is a single mother, was trying and doing her best to provide for us, with God's help, of course. Our mom eventually got us back, which meant that she found us a house. Unfortunately, it was located in a not-so-good area. Our house was a 2-bedroom house with 1 bathroom in the middle of the ghetto. On one side, we had a neighbor. For this story, we'll call him Mr. George. And on the right side of the house was nothing but woods. When we first moved in, we couldn't afford beds at the time, so we slept on the floor. Because the right side of the house faced the woods, it was extra creepy at night to sleep, because we also didn't have any blinds or curtains to the windows, seeing as we just moved in. There were times where I would be changing my clothes, and outside of my window, I would see the bushes moving. And not the kind of moving that wind causes, but like someone was trying to peek at me while I was changing. While living in that house, there were many different occurrences that were red flags to us. Like one night, we were all asleep, and my mother woke up to the sound of the knob to the front door constantly being turned, as if someone was trying to get in. Another occurrence was when my brother was coming out of the bathroom, and because his bed was right by the window that faced the front yard, he was looking out the window and saw a tall figure just standing there watching the house. It was the same thing when he was in our room. Our rooms were split by gender since there were so many of us. The girls' room was located somewhere near the backyard facing the woods, so when he was on my sister's bunk bed that faced the forest, he saw the figure again. At the time when my dad was there, my mother and him went outside to see where the figure was, but found nothing. Now the real thing. One day, my mother said that she wanted to take back our library books. I was born in Charleston, South Carolina, but at the time we lived in North Charleston. The library was about a good 30 minutes away from our house, maybe an hour with traffic. So anyways, my mother said that she wanted to take our books back, but asked us if we wanted to come. We kept repeatedly telling her no because we just didn't feel like going out. With me being the oldest, I figured that I could hold down the fort until she got back. So she left and said that she would be back soon. Not even 5 minutes had passed before she came back and told us all to get in the car. For some reason, she had changed her mind and wanted all of us to come with her. She said she just wanted us to come with her for some reason, like it was a complete 360. I was annoyed at first, but we all got ready and we headed out. When we arrived at the library, my mother was supposed to only turn our old books back in, but for some reason we stayed much longer than expected. We were supposed to leave and come back, but we stayed there for almost 3 hours. Every time my mother told us to come on, either something like a movie or book caught her eye. The younger ones would start playing with the toys, or my mother would get sucked back into conversation with someone else. It was like every time we tried to leave, there was something that always prevented us from doing so. Now, in our house, because it was so small, it got hot very easy because it was an old house. So our landlord came and installed one of those AC units that hang outside of the window, because when it turns on, it sucks the hot air out of the window and pushes the cold air in. This is important for the story. So when we came back to our house, my mother noticed something was off. All of the lights were on when we specifically remember turning them off. I did a double take because also our AC was gone. Because it was gone, that left the window wide open. My mother and I got out and told the others to stay in the car. When we got to the door, it was unlocked and our place was trashed. Our clothes were gone through, my bed had boot marks on it, and my brother's bed too. The funny thing is that they didn't take anything. Our laptops and computers were still there, so was the printer. It seems like they came in and took only things like diapers, wipes, and they messed with our food and then left. It was one of the scariest moments of my life. My mother called the police and they inspected the area, but they never found anything. We called our landlord and he put new locks and curtains on our windows, and we got more food and supplies. After that, we had no more break-ins and we moved out after a year. While moving into our new house in a better, safer area, I remembered something that chills my bones to this very day. My mother and I both noticed something when we came home that day. When we got out of the car and went to the door, we slowly pushed the door open, and what we saw was truly terrifying. When someone comes to break into your house, they might put a chair up against the door to block maybe the police, or to let them know if the person who owns the house has returned. But usually the chair would be facing backwards. When we opened the door, the chair was faced towards the door as if someone was sitting in the chair waiting for us to open the door. It was faced like how it would be if you sneak back in after curfew and your parents are sitting facing the door waiting for you to come home. It was like they were waiting for us to come back, and when we did, they would take matters into their own hands. I thank God for that day, because if he didn't tell my mother to take us to the library, or even if he hadn't kept us there for so long, I fear what would have happened to us all.
I was just 12 years old when this incident happened. One day, I was walking with a friend on the beach. We were just talking and having fun when we needed to go through a road that was pretty much full of creepers. As we were walking, a man in his 60s, dressed up in a costume, walked up to us and said, "Come here, pretty girls, sit next to me." Well, as a 12-year-old, I wasn't dumb enough to go over there, so I grabbed my friend's arm and ran away. 2 days later, I was in my room texting to one of my friends. I live on the first floor, so pretty much anyone could just look inside my room. As I was saying, I was texting one of my friends when I saw a person's shadow. As I looked over, my heart dropped. It was the same man in the same costume, standing right outside my window, staring right at me. I locked my bedroom door and closed the curtains of my window. When he started tapping on my window, he yelled, "Sweetie, can you open your window so I can sit next to you?" I was so scared at this moment, so I grabbed my phone and called the cops. The man probably heard my call to the police because he started running away. A few minutes went by as I started to hear the police sirens. The police officers looked around my neighborhood and caught him running down the street. When I looked over to see the police taking him away, I almost fainted. He was smiling at me and giggling. The police officer searched around my house and found some blankets and food under my bed. He must have lived under my bed. Well, this happened 9 years ago, and now I'm 21. The man's release date is coming up soon, and I'm scared he'll come after me again.
They call me Joseph. This happened to me when I was 14 years old, and honestly, I have to say what happened was the most traumatic experience in my entire life. I was out in the park playing ball with my friends, who we'll call Nikita, Ivan, and Vlad. Vlad had to go study, so he left, and the sun was setting a few hours later, so Nikita left along with everyone else who was in the park. Ivan and I decided to stay late, and we continued playing ball for a few hours until it was around 11 o'clock. It was pitch black, so we decided to wrap it up and go home, as our parents would be worried sick. We were leaving the empty park in the dead of night when a boy who was about 16 stopped us. He was wearing a black trench coat, black boots, and a black balaclava. He introduced himself as Draven, and he asked if we wanted to play. It was really late, and I felt a bit uncomfortable interacting with him due to what he was wearing, and also due to the fact that it was a bit odd that some kid would come out this late at night. I was about to respectfully decline and just walk past him, when Ivan, who was a bit of an irresponsible, immature idiot who didn't sense danger, stopped me and told me that this guy seemed cool and that it wouldn't harm if we stayed another hour and played with him. After listening to Ivan talk for another 15 minutes, I reluctantly agreed to play with him until midnight. We started playing ball, and Draven was an awesome striker in football. We also struck up a conversation and learned that Draven went to a school nearby, loved playing football and video games, as well as sneaking out at night, and that he wore his weird clothing so he wouldn't get caught. He seemed interesting, and he seemed very polite and friendly as well. I started to like Draven, and Ivan seemed to adore him. Eventually, when Ivan and I were about to leave as it struck midnight, Draven offered us some candy. Ivan grabbed it out of his hand and savored it. I was a bit cautious at first, not knowing what might be in it, but I remembered that Draven was a normal kid who was very polite, so I grabbed the candy and ate it. The candy tasted a bit off, but as I sucked on it longer and longer, I realized it tasted awesome, but I wanted some more, and so did Ivan. Draven said he had hundreds of those candies at his house, and that he also had pizza, chips, cake, donuts, chocolates, and energy drinks at his house, and that if we came to his house, we could have more. As Ivan and I were addicted to that candy, we agreed, and Draven told us to follow him. He led us through the park, into the dark forest, and we walked through that dark forest for over an hour before we reached a rundown, shabby, broken abandoned house with a black van that was parked right in front of the house. I was craving the candy, so Ivan and I rushed to the door. However, for some reason, I looked at the window next to the door and I saw 4 men there. One of the men was a bald, 25-year-old wearing a green t-shirt who was around 6 foot 6 inches and 320 pounds and was extremely muscular. Another one was a man around 20 years old with long, brown, messy hair who was around 6 foot 7 inches and was 280 pounds, and he was wearing a biker's outfit. The third man was a blonde-haired man of 32 who was wearing glasses and was about 5 foot 8 and 155 pounds. He also seemed to be wearing a jumpsuit and a cap. The fourth man was a man of 51 who stood at 6 foot 2 inches and he was wearing a tuxedo. I noticed that the first man was holding an axe, the second man was holding a butcher's knife, the third man was holding a pistol and handcuffs, while the fourth man was holding a rifle. I got really scared, so I tried to signal to Ivan, but he was really immature and he was craving the candy, so he didn't notice. However, I think Draven did notice and he grinned, while the 4 men looking out the window grinned. Without thinking, I ran past Draven and I ran through the forest at full speed. And after what felt like forever, I left the forest and I was at the empty park. I whizzed through the park and whizzed through the dead of night until I reached my house. I started to feel guilty for leaving the vulnerable Ivan in the clutches of those freaks and started to worry about him, but I realized that I couldn't do anything and that in this situation, I could have only saved myself. When I arrived at my house, I pounded at my door and after what felt like forever, my dad opened the door. I fell into his arms and I hugged him tightly. My mom, my brother, my 2 sisters, and my dog and my cat came behind him. I started crying out of fear, and also due to me worrying about Ivan. My parents sent my dog and my siblings away and made me some tea, soup, and biscuits. I apologized and explained what happened to my parents and how I was about to enter a house, but I escaped when I saw that those people in the house were armed. My parents were very understanding, so they comforted me and sent me to bed. The next day, my parents called Ivan's parents, who said Ivan didn't come home, and they called the police. So my dad, my mom, my dog, my cat, my brother and sisters, Nikita and Vlad's parents, Ivan's parents, some other friends, and the park ranger, along with several police officers, went through the park and forest and arrived at the house. I felt safe to be with all those people. The police searched the house and found nothing apart from rats, mice, spiders, squirrels, and insects. And they said that this house was vacant and the owner died over 100 years ago. They said they would launch an investigation and try to find Ivan. We were then leaving when my dog stopped and started smelling a piece of cloth outside of the house. We all stopped, and the police saw that my dog was smelling that cloth, and they said it might be a clue. We all went home while the police took my dog away for a bit. A week later, they returned my dog and said that the dog led them several miles away to another base. The police searched that base and found blood on the floors and then found over 20 dead bodies. They found out that when I escaped, that Ivan was lured inside the house, where he was beaten up before being dragged to a van and whisked away to a base where he was maimed, tortured, and brutally murdered. Afterwards, his body was then used as storage to hide drugs. I felt sick when I found out, and I started crying my eyes out. I suffered from mental health issues, and I had to go to therapy. Eventually, I paid tribute to Ivan, and I apologized for not saving him. Hi, my name is Amir, but you can also call me by my famous name, One Man's Voice. I was a student at the University of Ohio, and I am really superstitious. Quite a bit of strange incidents have happened to me, but I'll mention the biggest one. You all have probably heard of Room 428 in the Wilson Hall of Ohio University. I'd count this as my lack of luck that I got that room once. And yeah, I escaped it because I saw creepy things. But that story's for another time. In early 2009, my idol singer and the greatest entertainer of all time, Michael Jackson, announced a series of comeback concerts known as This Is It. It got canceled though because of his sudden death on June 25th, 2009. I luckily got those tickets, but after it was canceled, I was really sad. At that time, I had moved to London because I really wanted to see the concerts. I think that was my biggest mistake. Anyway, I lived in an apartment. Behind the apartment were a few buildings, and behind that were woods beside the police station. And if you go beyond the woods, you will find a lake and also some mountains. One day, in our apartment gym, I started practicing Michael Jackson's Billie Jean dance. Suddenly, a friend of mine, let's call him Luke, said to me that he had seen something strange down there. I replied, "What?" He said he had seen this guy with a hoodie stabbing something. "Oh, nah, bruh," I replied. "I am not going to risk my life. Sorry, it must be your imagination," I added. "Bro, are you messed up? Let's explore it," said Luke. But I refused again. He left the apartment disappointed. I knew he was coming up with some sort of prank, so yeah, I ain't doing that. Days and months had passed. December rolled around, and I was extremely excited for Christmas. Christmas came, and I was wandering in the streets. I spoke with my family who lived in Ohio at the time a few hours earlier, and I was feeling really active. I wanted to do an amazing activity. As I was passing by the shops, snow was rolling down and there was a lot of traffic in the road, with people and kids running and walking and all that. And an idea clicked in my mind. Let's go out for a walk near the woods with my friend Luke. I called Luke and told him let's go. He was excited. It was around 10 p.m. and he came with his car. I was sitting on the curb waiting and he parked his car in the police parking lot. And there we go. We started walking with our flashlights. Just to give a little background, the area consisted of two sections, Section A and Section B. Section A was where we came from, and it led straight to the buildings and to my apartment, and Section B led straight to the woods, and God knows how deeper. We chose Section B and decided to walk around. There was a sign that we saw before we entered the woods. There was something strange written on it, DND, and below that was Do Not Disturb. "Ah, you think we're scared," said Luke. And we entered the woods. I wasn't ready to go, because as soon as I entered, I felt an eerie feeling. Something felt like it was looking at us, or watching us. I was thinking to myself that there was this feeling, this odd feeling, that to be honest, I had never felt before. Luke accidentally dropped his phone, and then I heard something rustling in the woods. Luke whispered to me, "Let's go a little deeper." As soon as he said that, I heard a strange voice. I'd prefer not to describe what I heard because it was too awful. But I ran so fast that I left Luke behind. As I was running, I saw the exit of Section B and ran straight towards the Section A where my apartment was. I didn't even know where I was running to be honest. I almost blacked out. I couldn't hear Luke coming, but I ran for my life straight to my apartment. I went straight to the elevator and came to my floor, and then my room, and straight to my bed. I had to calm down a bit, but then I realized I left Luke behind. I didn't care much, though. I looked out my window straight over to the police department where the woods were located. I didn't see much, but I also didn't see Luke's car there. That meant he ran away too, but I could definitely see there was something in the woods that appeared to be maybe a phone. I supposed that was Luke's phone. I didn't care much. I peacefully slept the whole night, and I didn't stress out about it too much. However, that's not the end of the story. It was New Year's Eve. It was December 31st, 2009. I didn't hear anything from Luke again, however. It was around 3 p.m. and I went outside. I was meeting with Luke. He was standing there, and when he saw me, he didn't even say hello or hi. All he said was, "Dude, I need to show you something." I said, "What?" He pulled out his arm and showed me. It had a lot of bloody marks on it. I was shocked. He said that when he was running away, something was cutting him or possibly biting. He ran away like Usain Bolt and took his car away and ran straight downtown to his apartment. However, in a rush, he crashed into another car and got injured. I said, "Oh man, did you get your phone back?" He said, "No. Want to go and check?" I really wanted to refuse, but I was curious. We went back to the woods, and surprisingly, no phone was there. Luke was a stupid-ass dude and went deep into the woods. I just waited for him. I didn't want to risk my life for a phone. I waited, and I checked my phone and minutes had passed. Then half an hour later, nothing. He didn't return. Okay, I am not returning there. I have to do something, I mumbled. I then shouted, "Luke! Luke, are you there?" No response. I turned back and started walking towards my apartment because I knew he would return anyway. I heard something. It was that person with the hoodie. They said, "Hey man, want to look at something?" I ran for my life. I called 911 after I reached my apartment. Well, the police came to the location of the woods, and what they found was disturbing. They found Luke kidnapped and fainted. Luke was sent to the hospital, and he explained to me later that he got kidnapped. Unfortunately, Luke got hooked on drugs, and he later died in 2015. I moved to Texas and never returned to London. I hope Luke is in a good place.